Great. Welcome everyone to this webinar about timber for regeneration, low carbon innovations. It's nice to see you all here, and it's nice to see some familiar names in the attendees box. My name is Marloes Heining, and I'll be your facilitator for this webinar. Yeah, and welcome to this another webinar from the RCSA, the Regenerative Collaborative. We are a non-profit organization focused on transforming the built environment into a regenerative one. We promote strategies and approaches that bring regenerative design and construction to life. We work collectively to inspire, educate, and create awareness and contextualize regenerative built environment approaches to the South African context. And we really make an effort to showcase local projects, local people, and local companies that are aligned with our goal, which is creating a regenerative future. We record all our webinars, and we've been doing this since 2021. So if you have missed, and I'm sure you have missed one of them, if you have missed one of them, you can find them on our YouTube channel. So go there and see if there's any topics. Also give us feedback on which were your favorite topics so that we can also bring those back in the future. If you're not doing so, please follow us on one of these three platforms. Eventbrite is handy because then you get an automatic response that we have created a new event or a new webinar. And on LinkedIn is also easy to keep up to date with what is happening. And then obviously our YouTube channel. So we are steadily growing, which is a good sign. And yeah, and if you want to become a sponsor, reach out to us. We are a non-profit and relying on some sponsorship to keep these webinars going. But today's webinar is sponsored by Resolute Timbers. We're super happy that they're willing to contribute to our webinar. So a big thank you to them. They are the exclusive supplier of Accoya wood. They are known for combining cutting-edge wood science with exceptional local craftsmanship. Resolute Timbers was founded in 2011 in Cape Town by Kim Middleton, and he's also on the call. Resolute Timber grew from bespoke joinery to operating a 3,000 square meter manufacturing facility, and they've become the leading supplier of high-performance doors, windows, cladding, and decking, with a strong focus on sustainability and quality. So I'm going to play a short video, and then we're going to go into the meet and greet. And we have Chloe from Resolute Timber, who will explaining everything about Accoya wood today as well. Here you go. Great. Thanks again to our sponsor, Resolute Timber, and thank you for leading the way in a responsible for regenerative timber innovation product. And I'm looking forward to hear more from Chloe about this product. So let's dive straight into it. We have two speakers today. First up is David Talbot, founder of the multidisciplinary consultancy platform established in 2018 after more than 2 decades in the architectural sector. David's career spans studios in London, Ireland, and South Africa with extensive experience leading complex projects across commercial, residential, and hospitality sectors. Prior to founding a platform, he served as an associate director at DHK Architects for 15 years. David holds an architectural degree from CPTUT and a postgraduate degree in property studies from UCT. He's also a Green Star accredited professional and an EDGE expert, contributing sustainability expertise to numerous developments across South Africa. So before I'm going to hand over to him, I'm going to introduce the next speaker as well so that we have a smooth transition between the two presenters, after which we can start our discussion around the topic. So also joining us today is Chloe Kirkby. She's head of business for Gauteng and surrounding regions at Resolute Timbers. With over a decade of senior management experience, Chloe has worked with some of South Africa's leading retailers and manufacturers, bringing a strategic edge to her expertise in marketing, sales, and data analytics and business development. Her passion for innovation led her to discover Accoya, and she has become a driving force behind expanding its reach in both established and emerging markets across the region. So welcome, guys. I'm very happy you are here to share your story, and I'm going to hand over to David, who's going to present on an exciting project that he's built with CLT Timber.
Thanks very much, Marlis, and hi, everybody. So nice to be here. Here being in my boardroom, but nice to be online with everybody. We share an interest in sustainability, and thanks, Marlis, for the opportunity, and certainly feel quite honored to be invited by the Regenerative Collaborative. I'm excited to share this project of ours with you in Betty's Bay. As Marlis mentioned, my name is David. I founded the platform in 2018, and our works really range from large commercial development projects like Witham Estate, which is on the left, a large retirement complex in Upper Kenilworth, right through to the other spectrum of basic work, getting compliance for some ECD, Early Childhood Development Centers in Langa, working with the NGO Breadline Africa, contributed to by Rotary. So, but I mean, I'd say the majority of our work is in a mix of commercial development work and high-end private estates, but it's very broad. And we also engage in some turnkey interior fit-outs, as well as some property development work, which is quite exciting. And yeah, we have one of our own residential estates that we're developing with a private funder. So platform is a collaborative environment. We're about 10 people. Just to give you a little bit of a brief introduction as to who we are. We're about 10 people now. It started with just me in my spare room in my house, and now we're at offices in Newlands. 10 of us, mostly here at the workshare space, but it fluctuates. We're a mix of architects and technologists, one interior architect as well, and one administrative assistant. Back in 2018, when we started, Kerry Lancellis and Roger Luntman had acquired a beautiful property in Betty's Bay, and they came to see me, and they were looking to design and build a home there to get out of Cape Town and to be close to a family member in Betty's Bay. The piece of land they purchased was directly adjacent to the Harry Potter Botanical Gardens, a really spectacular site. They had very ambitious architectural aspirations, but a limited budget to work with. The site was pretty spectacular, and yeah, but I think the project budget and architectural aspirations were pretty much separated by almost the same space as the mountain valleys in the pictures you can see. But I was just starting out, and they were really nice people. But most of all, it was really their kind of ambition, which was enticing. Something about them just said to me, I thought they could kind of pull this off. So off we went, and their brief to me was something like this. They wanted a modern tree house in the forest. It had to have a bridge, and it should float between the treetops and become part of the landscape, and should feel connected to the natural environment. So those images are obviously the finished product, but getting there was quite a journey, and a fairly atypical architectural project in many senses. You know, coming from a commercial background, we were fairly structured, so this was quite different. So that's what I want to share with you today, is really just this architectural journey and the process we went on within the limited time I've got. So starting out, I thought this was really an opportunity to really immerse myself in the site and document the process, having a bit more time than I would in a kind of a big practice where we are under a lot of time pressures and other financial pressures. So really thoroughly document the client's requirements. The accommodation list was quite extensive in contrast to the budget. I climbed up that mountain range you saw, and kind of sketched the site as I could see it and the local kind of geographical features, understanding the site's location and context surrounding the natural environment. And these are sketches literally I've taken from my sketchbook back in the day. When I was asked to first talk about this, I went back and dug them out. And it's local context of two converging mountains to the north with the valley between, opening up to the botanical gardens. There was some local residential development adjacent, and a house on the southern boundary. But I really mapped the site. So, you know, the site had particular kind of spatial qualities within it itself. So I really took the time to kind of spend time on the site, and I'll get into the detail of that later, but that was just an initial sketch. And some initial diagrams and thinking about the site sort of started to emerge, but very rudimentary, just to really share my thoughts and sketches and like I said, the journey. So to give an outline of timeframes, our first client meeting was in April 2018. By May, we'd finalized an appointment, and we started with inception process and briefing. By July, we had an initial concept, and then we'd finalized that concept by end of the year. So quite a while. We'll get into the detail of that. Design development, work stage 3, January to February 2019, quite quick, but we've done a lot of, probably gone into that work stage later the previous year as well, as part of that concept stage. We've probably gone more into design development. And then our first council submission, we'll get into that later, in March 2019. The client organized for me to stay over at the house adjacent. So this is the house located to the south of the property. It was a really cool little cottage, organic, kind of a natural feel. And only afterwards, kind of going through the photos, did I think, well, maybe this kind of had a bit of an influence on me. But pretty cool little cottage. So this is the map of the site that I came up with then, and I kind of coined this term terrestrial identities. So yeah, each area having its own sort of feeling, if you could call it that, but it's really driven by the spatial quality. So the natural light and the forest around. So there was the forest clearing, a natural dry riverbed running through the site, what I call the thicket to the east, and then a thin buffer of trees to the west, and then the road further to the west. But I articulated that in writing in a bit more detail. I really wanted that to kind of I wanted to represent those spatial qualities in the building itself. That was the intention, you know, starting out with best intentions. Then walking around the site, around the perimeter of the site, although the site was pretty spectacular, the edge of the site was to the botanical gardens was actually quite barren. There's like a, what is it, the park run, the local park run, which goes around the perimeter of the site through the botanical garden. So maybe not such an inviting environment on the edge of the site. But once you elevated on the site above the treetops, some views towards the mountain, towards the sea. And then the forest floor itself was pretty magical, actually. Then some initial diagrams that started to emerge, sketched actually while I was on site. And at this stage as well, the accommodation brief from the client was quite significant. So we were looking at potentially 2 stories. So this was just exploring tectonics, how potentially 2 floors would work over one another, how do they sit above one another in response to the site. And there were just some thoughts I'd penned down. So with this accommodation brief as well, the client wasn't sure, and I also wasn't too sure, whether the living areas should be on ground floor and our bedrooms above. And given the constraints of the site being a lot of the trees which we wanted to keep, we didn't want to use too much floor space. So double story made sense, but how does one fit that on? Living areas down below or bedrooms above? Here's some diagrams which we discussed with the client, and then likewise the flip side, living areas on top, bedrooms above. You can see both diagrams were a bit different at that stage, really explorative. And just that was also just a sketch, thinking about kind of form on the site, not related to any planning or anything, just a kind of off the cuff thinking and kind of bolder early response to thinking of the site. So, as I mentioned, initial calculations of floor area and order magnitude costs were telling me we needed to pull back on the area. After that meeting, we added accommodation, so we added like a workshop on the floor below, an additional guest bedroom. So things were getting bigger, but that's what they wanted. And this is the plan that emerged. Really quite an organic edge on the south. And that curvilinear edge you can see is responding to the existing trees. You can see the outline of that. But the geometry of that kind of broken in the middle for 2 reasons, really. Having all the accommodation on one level, which now the client wanted. They didn't want the 2-story solution. We would just want everything on one level. Bar a workshop below. Sorry, that's not on this floor plan, but there was a small workshop below, everything on one level. You had a very long circulation spine. So the curvilinear edge kind of broke it, but it also made that space an opportunity to kind of have some, do something with that space and not let it just be a passage. And we opened it up with all glass on that front. And then the change in geometry just helps kind of, you don't really want to walk down one long straight passage. So some sketches exploring that fall. So you can see here, originally there was a masonry element, which is that element on the left, bedded in the landscape, and then this cross-laminated timber box. It was plugged onto it, which then, as the ground dropped away, floated above the landscape. That's that workshop down below. You can see that dry river bed running in the middle, and the building kind of changes geometry right over the top of that. Elevations at this stage. At that point, yeah, there was also a step in the building midway along the building form, where I've got that cut line. That's probably why I had the cut line, because I hadn't resolved it yet. It's cheating. I built a rough model of the site and put in the trees, and then I could play around with the form and get to understand it a bit better. And then that found its way into a Revit model and started to develop, and I was quite excited about it at that stage. You can see the masonry component bedded in the landscape, some Gabion walls at that stage, anchoring kind of a lightweight cross-laminated timber structure, which was clad in timber, elevated above the forest floor. So we commissioned a surveyor then to actually peg it out on site, so we could physically see what it would look like on site, specifically to make sure that we were getting around the trees, and also to check the height. What we really wanted to see is whether we could have it, not have a step and actually have it all on one level, which it turned out we could. We could do that. We were still within the height restriction. And we made some minor level adjustments and form adjustments based on that site setting up, which was quite useful to do. And also we made sure where that connecting element was within the cross-laminated timber box, that circulation spine. We just punched out a hole on both sides to kind of make it more transparent. And Kerry really wanted a bridge, so this was her bridge at this stage before the actual big bridge came in. So by the end of 2018, we'd wrapped up the concept, but we had probably quite detailed concept drawings. Like I said, more actually stage 3 drawings. We started to develop quite a lot of the technical details, and these are those drawings. You can see the build-up of the envelope. I'll get into that in a bit later detail. There. A cross-laminated timber box, basically, which is insulated and then waterproofed and then clad with timber. We submitted to council and we got approval, but it wasn't that simple, because at that stage, cross-laminated timber wasn't, there wasn't a SANS code for it. So the cross-laminated timber supply was XLAM, Jamie from XLAM, and they had to provide a whole lot of certification documentation. So they had tests commissioned by the University of Stellenbosch, and we had to supply all of that information to the local authority. But the approvals process, I must take my hat off to the Overberg municipality, and be careful not to say anything about the Cape Town municipality, but it was pretty quick and pretty swift, considering the technicality, or let's say, the out of code technology that we were using here. So, yeah, the client didn't want a quantity surveyor involved, and we're convinced they were going to get some pricing from contractors locally. So they did, but the prices they were getting back didn't quite, weren't comparing apples with apples, of course. And 2019, they asked us for some assistance with procurement, but then in 2020, COVID hit, and also prior to that, there were some really bad fires in Betty's Bay. So the fires actually decimated their site, burnt down all the trees that we designed the building around, which I kind of laugh about now, but it was quite devastating for them. And then COVID hit, so they put everything on hold. And yeah, in June 2020, we sat down together again, and they, asked us to really relook at this thing, because they really wanted to cut down on the accommodation requirement, because they realized that the budget was just not going to work with or the cost to build it wasn't going to work with their budget. So to cut down on accommodation, really, this was an opportunity, as one has to see these things. And we looked at replanning it and repurposing it. So I saw this was a great opportunity to lose the masonry element altogether. So we get rid of this masonry element and just have this little tree house, which is actually more true to the concept, a tree house, which is what they were looking for. We take that out, we create a big bridge, we keep it in the same place. We replanned it, like you can see this plan here was a sketch I did to kind of replan it. And we just create a big bridge, from the parking area into the building. And Kerry was really excited about that, and it worked for them. The plan at that stage was actually to do almost 2 phases, to do this as a first phase and then come back with the other phase. But I think, as it's realized now, they don't want to change a thing. So, yeah, the design, I think, is even more elegant than it was before, and simple. So The arrival, what we did here as well is the parking is kind of on the left within the stone wall, and then you kind of pushed back to come down a ramp. So the whole sense of arrival is a little bit mysterious, and you got this winding path kind of from the parking area down onto the bridge and then into the treetops. And the house is pretty much hidden within the treetops. You walk down this bridge and then pop out into this timber box. This is a large opening to the north. There's a pergola design which hadn't been installed yet at this stage on the north, shading the northern sun. You can see how you see right through into the treetops beyond. And the south facade is pretty much all sliding stack and frameless glass with the steel posts externalized. You can just see one black steel post there, pretty hidden. You can see that element there, if you can see my cursor. And the externalized steel posts really allow the glazing to be continuous. The structural engineer was Mark Hutchinson from Structim Consulting, who was really great and also excited to explore some of these. We're really pushing the structural limitations of the cross-laminated timber to the max. The timber fins you can see, yeah, there's that steel externalized post. The timber fins are baboon proofing, so you can open the whole thing up, but you know there is a risk that baboons get in. And we didn't want to slat the whole thing, so you can open up portions of it and just leave it open, and those slatted timber fins then act as baboon proofing. Yeah, then also no downlights in this building. One of the things with the cross-laminated timber is we didn't want to. I mean, you can't really chase into it too much. You can't chase. You have to actually pre-cut the panels in the factory for all the conduiting. So we elected to do as little of that as possible and use LED lighting, strip LED lighting, and standing floor lamps. And the client bought into that. And yeah, actually they also were keen on not having downlights. So this worked really well. So now obviously we needed to submit another building plan to council. So because as you know, or if you don't, you can't get occupancy on half a building. It has to be a full building. And the client was also financing the build, so the banks required an approved plan matching what they were applying for. So we took instruction from them to prepare a new submission to the local authority. Importantly, we also agreed that we should develop technical documentation for the project to assist in getting better, more detailed costings and to aid the construction process. They were clear, though, that they were going to manage and build this project themselves. When I say build it themselves, obviously manage all the subcontractors and everybody, which was quite a task to take on board. Yeah, Jamie and his team from XLAM provided us with a lot of technical details to understand the cross-laminated timber construction capabilities and the technical detailing. So you can hear, these are our details that we developed with the help of Jamie, showing how that envelope gets made up. We don't really have time to go into too much detail, but yeah, it's a layered system. So the cross-laminated timber is the solid bits you can see here, but it has a vapor barrier over it. Then there's insulation with battens and then counter battens. And then we had a board to close up the cavity space and insulation and protect it from weather, and then the slats on top of that. That detail changed. We eventually ended up going with a composite lunar wood panel that did both the job of that weatherboard and the slat all in one. So yeah, so there you can see it. That's the composite lunar wood panel, which is a heat-treated timber. And here you can see the curvilinear south facade, which large glass openings and large timber slats acting as the baboon proofing, as I mentioned. So that curvilinear south facade is really contrasted on the north by a much more rectilinear facade, which is really responding to the room geometries, and then the windows framing views out to the mountains. So, and then also getting in lots of nice north natural light. The structure itself, so this is the cross-laminated timber box, which is really the shell of this house. Walls, floors, and roof itself, all cross-laminated timber. the south edge and that curvilinear edge you can see is cantilevered off the steel beam. So we're really pushing to achieve this curve, and we had a lot of discussions about softening the curve, pulling the curve back, you know, to try limit the amount of cantilever. But I felt, you know, if this thing was going to work, it had a curve, and it had a curve like properly. Otherwise, so it was quite a thing structurally to get this to work. That doesn't only cantilever, but it's also, that cantilever is actually supported by those steel posts on the outside as well. When I say supported, that it's actually held from above. So there's more structure above, picking up that curved edge, and then that steel post is actually supporting in tension. So basically that cantilever is also hanging off of that steel post, which is supported from above. So yeah, quite a creative structural solution to achieve this. So that's just an extract from one of the structural drawings showing those steel post positions and the beam below. And yeah, all of the cross-laminated timber walls you can see are part of the structure supporting the slab above, with a combination of steel posts and beams. There you can see it all working together nicely. And then another interesting part of the structure was the foundations. So this is a steel pile cap. The whole building is founded on these steel pile caps with steel piles. These are driven by hand. So there's 3 guys, you know, and those are the foundations of this building. So no concrete was used in the making of this building and the foundations, or anyway. So no concrete trucks driven, no heavy machinery driven onto site. So really as light a touch on the environment as possible. Oh, it's actually a video, but we don't need to see that. This is the steel structure going up for the first time. I actually had to take it down because they got a few things wrong and reinstall it. But, you know, and of course, yeah, the client was managing it. No main contractor overseeing it. So this was their first introduction to building, a rude awakening for them. And the cross-laminated timber structure in its raw form going up. Yeah, so you can see a bucky there. There's no big, there's a small lightweight, a small crane, no big cranes used, heavy machinery. Yeah, how cool is this pool? It's a freshwater eco pool. The client was inspired, well, her inspiration was, she said, I wanted a pool that must be like Lady Anne Barnard's bath. And her uncle actually builds eco freshwater pools. So he designed and built this thing together with us. We were involved in it, but I mean, I can't take credit for the final shape of this. He says, you know, he was inspired by the curvilinear kind of shape of the house, and he showed me his hand sketches and everything. We tweaked a few things, but this, I mean, it's pretty spectacular. So, and yeah, all natural water from the site, which then this then reactivates that kind of dry river stream. So there are frogs and birds that come and join you in the pool here. Yeah, so to wrap up from a timeline perspective, we did a second council submission in July 2020, in September, October, technical documentation, and they started construction in June 2021, and it was completed in August 2023. So 2 and a bit years to build it yourself. But the product really kind of exceeded expectations, and the client was very happy with the outcome. They said to me, being involved in the process, you know, for them, and seeing all of the hands and that go into making a building, they really appreciate what a craft it is. You know, as such, they didn't want any finish to go into the building that they didn't know whose hand had gone into making it. So beautiful James Mudge furniture. Those green tiles are Kolki ceramic, local ceramic tiles. And those tiles on the floor, I can't remember the name of the supplier, but they're all made locally. And the green fleck you can see in them is actually recycled wine bottles, which are used in the tile mix. Yeah, so that's it. All we've got time for. So thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, David. That's
Cool.
awesome. That
Cool.
beautiful project.
Thank you.
I'm going to swiftly hand over to Chloe.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to be with us this afternoon, and thanks, Marloes, for inviting me to present. As Marloes introduced me earlier, my name is Kirkby, and I work at Resolute Timbers. Today, I'm going to take you through acetylated timber, or otherwise known as Accoya. Like she mentioned, we are the sole distributors in Africa for Accoya, and Accoya is the optimal solution for cladding, decking, windows, and doors. So a quick agenda. I'm just going to take you through what is acetylated timber, or otherwise known as Accoya, what the acetylation process is, and how the timber is modified, what are the benefits of acetylated timber, a brief summary of Accoya, which is also a timber that we supply in Africa and South Africa. What are the key considerations for specifying acetylated timber? And then if I have time, I'll take you through a few case studies. A quick summary on who we are. So we form part of a joinery based in Cape Town called the Window and Door Store Cape. We've been running for 43 years. We started up in Joburg, then we were in the Eastern Cape, and we also now are in the Western Cape. And so we have a broad knowledge of the different climates within South Africa. And we realized in Cape Town specifically, we would manufacture windows, doors, and they would fit perfectly. The client would be 100% happy. And then the winter in Cape Town would come and the rains would start and the calls would come in about doors not closing anymore. The timber had warped, the timber had swelled. And then the summers would come and the windows were rattling because they'd shrunk. And so we realized that there's a market for a timber solution that can withstand the South African harsh and varied climates. And that's where Resolute Timber was established, to bring a superior, long-lasting timber product to the country, which is called Accoya, and in this presentation, acetylated timber. What is acetylated wood or timber? So it's grown from a sustainable timber source. It's a FSC certified timber. It's modified by a process called acetylation. This acetylation process significantly improves the performance of the timber. It's non-toxic and fully recyclable. It's got a cradle-to-cradle gold overall certification and platinum for material health. It's mainly used for outdoor applications. However, we've used it for indoor applications such as in bathrooms, bathroom floors, cladding up baths. We've done a shower actually at a lodge in the Kalahari. So thinking of a wet floor on a shower and very, very harsh climates outside, and it's worked perfectly fine. And it doesn't require any coating. Just to take you through what the acetylation process is. So the timber is called radiata pine pre-modification, and it is soaked in acetic anhydride, which is a very fine gas, and it is done so under controlled temperatures and pressures. If you think about timber, and I'm not sure how many of you know, within timber, there are hydroxyl molecules, and these molecules are water-loving molecules. Those are the molecules that absorb water. And then within timber, there are acetyl molecules, which are water neutral, and they don't get impacted by water. During this acetylation process, those hydroxyl molecules are turned into acetyl molecules. So there are less molecules that absorb the water and more molecules that are water neutral, which severely restricts the water uptake into the cell walls, where it causes swelling and rotting and all the things that make people potentially avoid timber when building. And the byproduct is acetic acid, which is sold as a raw material. Acetic acid is basically a very strong vinegar. Treated wood versus acetylated wood. So treated wood relies on toxins a lot of the time. It's an envelope treatment, so it's not treated down to the core. So when the wood tends to move and crack, it's exposed to the exterior. It changes the durability of the timber, so it improves the durability, and it's cheaper than acetylated timber. Acetylated timber, the performance comes from in the wood because you're changing the molecular structure of the timber itself. So it's consistent throughout the profile of the timber. And there are multiple performance benefits, and I'll go into that now. It's also, like I mentioned, FSC certified, non-toxic, and cradle-to-cradle certified. It does have a higher initial cost, but because it lasts so long, it comes with a 50-year warranty, and it's got a lot less maintenance involved than other timbers. The cost differential is a lot less over time than other timbers. What are the benefits of Accoya? It's highly durable, it's highly stable, it's ideal for coating because of this. It's low maintenance, it's got a low environmental impact, it's non-toxic, it's a natural wood product being radiata prime, so no plastics. It's sustainably sourced, it's insect resistant, it's naturally insulating, it comes with a warranty and worldwide accreditations. From a durability perspective, acetylated timber is consistently equivalent to a class 1, which is better than most cladding timbers. Durability class 1 means that it's got a service life of 60 years. This is an experiment done where a piece of acetylated timber and radiata pine pre-modification is put into a box of water for the duration of an hour. And you can just see the difference in mass during that hour and how much water is absorbed in radiata pine, changing the mass versus the acetylated wood. So this is after 5 minutes. Then half an hour, 2.3 versus 0.2, and then an hour. So 0.2 versus 2.3. You can see that there's the water uptake in acetylated timber is a lot less than in the radiata pine pre the modification. This is also an example of an experiment done where we put other timbers that are commonly used for cladding and decking, like Siberian larch, thermo wood, acetylated wood, and wasted red cedar, in kind of false, harsh climates over a duration of 250 hours. And you can see that the other timbers, there's a lot of cupping, quite harsh and extreme cupping that goes on, whereas the acetylated timber stays straight. And this allows for you to, what we found is you can cut, normally with timbers, you cut the timber down to a thickness of 19 mils. With Accoya, you can cut it down to 15 mils. We've actually done cladding in Cape Town at 8 mils, and the timber has stayed completely straight. And also the decking boards, for an example, usually you want the decking boards to be about 140 mils. We're able to do decking boards to 190 mils. So it really gives you flexibility with design. And also, again, with regards to the cost, because you can get more bang for buck out of your timber boards, it is more cost effective. Acetylated wood is also more resistant to the sun's UV rays and suffers less in the way of UV degradation than other timbers. It'll still turn gray if uncoated in the long term, but because of the UV resistance, it's not breaking down the lignin in the timber boards as quickly as other timbers, which means that the timber is not moving, it's not splintering, and the timber board stays smoother for longer. And also the timber doesn't get as hot as quickly as other timbers. So it's really nice for decking with children running around on the deck, not getting splinters, not getting hot feet. And that's ideal when it comes to with decking. The exceptional stability and the improved UV resistance of acetylated wood also leads to extended coating lives. Because the timber's not moving, the coating's not peeling away, and the water isn't going into or underneath the coating. After 10 years, acetylated boards evidence their superior long-term performance without any form of maintenance. And there's been an assessment concluded that acetylated wood increases the coating life to first maintenance by at least a factor of 3, depending on the level of weather exposure in coastal and inland. But that's because of the durability of the timber. This is an example of a house in the UK where it was cladded and coated. And you can see after 10 years, the cladding looks just the same as it did 10 years ago. The color is the same, and it hasn't warped or cupped or moved. The finish, so we supplied natural as well as gray in South Africa. Gray, a lot of people like the gray look of a deck up front as opposed to letting it gray over time. You also have an infinite choices available when it comes to coatings and stains. And just a note regarding the gray is stained throughout its core, and that's how it comes. There's also amazing thermal insulation benefits. Comparing acetylated wood to softwood and hardwood, it's 8% more efficient than softwoods and it's 30% more efficient than hardwoods. So there's a considerable energy savings over the life of an acetylated wood window or door because of this. Like I mentioned earlier, it comes with a 50-year warranty above ground and a 25-year warranty below ground. And warranties are transferable from one owner to the next. From a sustainability perspective, like we've mentioned previously, it's sustainably sourced, FSC certified, net reduction of CO2, it's 100% recyclable, non-toxic, and it comes with worldwide accreditations. I know that a lot of you guys in South Africa know about FSC, but I want to go into a little bit more regarding cradle to cradle. It's based on 5 different sort of sections: material health, product circularity, clean air and climate protection, water and soil stewardship, and social fairness. Material health, like I mentioned, acetylation process is used to modify the timber is non-toxic, which is that acetic acid. So it minimizes the risk of contaminating the environment and the people. Product circularity, Accoya is 100% recyclable and can be disposed of like an unmodified timber. Due to its non-toxic nature, it allows for safe incineration and can be made into biomass briquettes or renewable energy. And the offcuts of Accoya are also used to make our other product called Tricoya, which I'll introduce to you in the next few slides. From a clean air and climate protection perspective, Accoya uses fast-growing sustainable radiata pine. Radiata pine grows incredibly quickly and actually gets to adulthood after 30 years. So it also absorbs an immense amount of CO2 because it's growing that quickly. The acetylation process then extends that lifespan of a 50-year to 60-year, as I discussed earlier on, locking in that carbon for longer and reducing frequent replacing and minimizing carbon emissions. Water and soil stewardship, Accoya uses water efficiently for cooling and manages it responsibly. And social fairness, Accoya promotes fair wages, safe conditions, and human rights across the supply chain. And I just want to also introduce you guys to Tricoya, which is another product that we supply. So Tricoya is a high-performance exterior MDF. It has all the benefits that I've just mentioned regarding Accoya. It also comes with the same warranties, ideal for coatings as well. But this MDF is amazing if you want to use it for outdoor joinery, skirtings where it's prone to be water, there's water or a wet environment, and yeah, things like that. Specifying acetylated wood. So acetylated wood is manufactured and supplied to distributors and manufacturers of joinery, cladding, and decking products. The principles of specifying the timber are the same as other timbers. However, the applications are greatly enhanced due to the performance of acetylated wood. And we do supply specification and technical support. There are some South African case studies that I'd like to quickly take you through. This is the Deloitte building at the V&A waterfront. It's cladded in Accoya. It is a 6-star Green Star rated building. This is cladding, dark cladding in plate on a building looking onto the sea. This is the Baldwin property in Johannesburg, and it's also cladded in Accoya, and it's also a 6-star Green Star rated building. The Twalu Lodge in Kalahari, this is really, really thin cladding, as you can see. It has not moved, and this is the lodge where we did the shower, and it's worked impeccably well. Some cladding in Ilovo, some joinery, windows, doors, all in Accoya in Constantia. Cladding, garage doors in Llandudno, and as well as a sliding door looking onto the ocean. Hasn't created any issues. And some global case studies. This is the Darling Exchange timber ribbons. You can see just how diverse this timber can be and projects you can use it for. A bridge in the Netherlands showcasing how stable this timber is. The Cambridge University Botanical Gardens have used Accoya for this project. The Rangaroo house cladding in Sydney, dark cladding. Noosa Boardwalk in Australia. And the Google head office in the UK is cladded with Accoya as well. And that's it from me. Thank you for your time.
Well done. That's an awesome product. All right. Let me open up the floor for some questions. Maybe David, you can also join. And Chloe, I think Kim is also joining the discussion, right?
Yes.
So there was one question while I'm trying to open the floor for everyone. Maybe David, you can you can start with that first question from Damien around, have you had any opportunities to use CLT on other projects since you've done that project, and what are you finding to be the biggest challenges to convincing clients to use CLT?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Damien. Yeah, unfortunately, we haven't had an opportunity to use CLT. A lot of people have said to me, you know, wow, have you got, because the project has been published and got quite a bit of coverage in the media, and people said, wow, we've got a lot of work out of that. I said, yeah, but well, not actually, but we have got some other projects, but interestingly enough, not CLT. I'm dying to do another CLT project. Yeah, and that leads into the next, what is the biggest challenges? I think budget is number one. And also there's a mental kind of block to timber buildings, I find, with developers and clients in South Africa, and just people, I think in general. You know, timber buildings have a particular stigma kind of, or perception of them. So people automatically kind of push back. And this is not a typical timber building. I mean, it's quite a sophisticated layered envelope. You know, it's the CLT, then it's the vapor barriers and the insulation and then the external cladding. So that typically is more expensive than a typical masonry constructed building. And also the contractors to do it are more expensive because it's not sort of standard technology. So yeah, those are the challenges.
We need to make it standard so that we get more of those.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I think, yeah, they really are. We need to get people in those buildings as well, because the buildings are, you know, that envelope, it is a more sophisticated envelope, but from an energy perspective, it performs better and it just feels better. So I think if you speak to the owners now, you know, they are CLT, what's the word, ambassadors almost. Yeah. Cool.
Right.
Yeah, I see another question from James, the baboon proofing. Actually, I saw that question earlier and I was looking, I couldn't find the photo, a really cool photo of like these two baby baboons climbing up the building with their faces peering through the slab. So, I mean, so I can't say, I've stayed there once, but the clients have told me, yes, it works. So, yeah, I can't testify to that.
Great. Before we go into the next question, I just want to introduce Kim, because you see there's another person now on the screen. So Kim Middleton, he's the director of Resolute Timbers, and he's having more than 43 years of experience in the joinery industry, and has worked across a wide range of projects and environments in South Africa and sub-Saharan Africa. So welcome, Kim. I know that you're here to answer all the difficult questions around Accoya and the treatment process. So Damien also asked a question, seeing that Accoya products are limited to cladding, decking, doors, and windows. Can the isolation process be applied to structural timber sections? And if so, are there any plans for structural sections to be produced?
Hi, everybody, and thanks very much for the opportunity. Specifically, it's been produced to manufacture windows, doors, decking, etc. But because of the cost implication, treated pine S5 and S6 is still the norm, even overseas. So we have structural timber sizes in stock in South Africa, but not a lot of people use it. They use it extensively for pergolas. We supply a lot to the pergola industry, but not for exposed roof trusses or roof trusses per se.
Great. And then does Terence is asking, how does the isolation improve the hardness of the wood? I think, Chloe, you did explain that, but maybe we can just give a brief summary.
Well, basically, with the acetylation process, increase the tensile strength of the timber by approximately 5%. So the outside durability is slightly better than normal South African pine or radiata pine.
Guys, Mike, do you want to answer your question? Mike has left the building. Okay, let me ask the question then. Is there a corrosion impact from the residual acetic acid on the corrosion of fixings in Accoya, and are there specific fixings required?
Yes, there's definitely, one has to use stainless steel screws and fixings. You can't use anything other than that. Otherwise, rust starts within a matter of 24 hours.
All right.
I saw another question about termites.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have had Accoya tested throughout the world, and then to make ourselves, to make sure that Accoya would withstand the termites that one gets in the Kruger Park and up in Zimbabwe, we've had tests done. And the one test where we had it in a closed environment, the termites ate all the other timber barring the Accoya, and they actually became cannibalistic and started eating one another because there's no nutrition left in the Accoya. So that was quite an interesting experiment.
That sounds like a very interesting experiment. Another question, how does Accoya perform in fire? Fire rating and resistance?
Unfortunately, at this stage, it's exactly the same as all the timbers in the world. It has the same fire rating as all the others. We are investigating having it impregnated by a company in Joburg at the moment to try and get a classification for fire rating. But as we stand at the moment, it's the same as all other timbers.
And question was more around scuffing and damage from
Furniture.
Furniture.
Okay, because it is a softwood and it has been obviously acetylated and it has this 5% durability better than normal pine, it's the same as any other flooring. It does scuff, it does scratch, for high traffic type of areas, it won't outperform Balau or any of those other hardwoods for exterior use. But apart from the hardwoods that are being harvested, without the FSC certification, it does last exceptionally well. A little bit of care just has to be taken, that's all.
Great. Any questions from the audience? There you go. Mike, go for it.
Yes, finally my microphone was cooperating. Thanks for a great presentation. Couple of other questions on the timber side. In terms of the recyclability or reusable end of life, does it have any impact on the breakdown, given that it's now sort of largely devoid of nutrients? What is the processing at sort of end of life from a disposal perspective?
Mostly it gets chipped and made into compost.
Okay, so it is still compostable.
Yes, it's still compostable, and a lot of the companies overseas, the joinery companies, etc., they are actually putting it into these briquettes, and then they're using it for generating their own heat sources in their factory.
Okay, no, great. And then from a finishing point of view, as far as range of finishes available that are compatible, given the change in the sort of molecular structure, are there certain finishes that bond better, or solvent-based, water-based? Is there a preference?
Okay, so the best thing to use is a pure acrylic, and it can't have any calcium carbonate in it because that reacts with the acetic acid. So any pure acrylic for outside water-based stains, no problem. You can use the other types of stains that are available, it's not a problem, but it's recommended that anything that's water-based is the preference.
Okay, no, excellent. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thank you. I have a question for David on the project. When you started the project, and was it the client's decision to go for a CLT, or was it did you propose to the client that you thought CLT would be the best option?
So no, we actually started, there were no kind of what's the word? There were no, there was no specific idea. So through the process of design and actually in a workshop with a structural engineer, it was Mark Hutchinson, the structural engineer, who suggested cross-laminated timber, that we should look at it. So the client was quite keen on it, given, their brief was something like a tree house and as light a touch on the environment as possible. So yeah, we looked at it and it could definitely was in line with kind of our design methodology. We met Jamie, I went to his factory, and we took the client there and they bought into the idea. So yeah.
And if you were able to redo the whole project again, would you do it exactly like that again?
Yes, definitely. I'd like to use it more, actually. I think, just it's a different way of building. I think we really need to make a change to the way that we build here with like clay-fired bricks, which are these tiny, small components that you then have to transport, and they're very heavy to site, and then you have labor piling them all up. And then the first thing they do once they build a wall is they come with an angle grinder and grind out these long, chases in the walls. So it forces you to think differently about a lot of things, like the conduiting, electrical power points, and be more mindful about those things. It's much lighter to transport. All of Jamie's timber comes from FSC-rated renewable resources, I think in Mpumalanga and Knysna. Yeah, and the speed of erection is much quicker on site. So here, of course, there were some delays because they put the steel structure up incorrectly and they had to take it down and re-put it up. But that's just, I think that it's a learning curve. And if the speed of adoption is quicker and it becomes more, a technology that people are familiar with, the cost will start coming down, and then it'll become, there'll be a quicker take up.
Great. There's a question from Justine. Could CLT offsite prefabrication reduce project timelines enough to offset its higher upfront cost? So reduction in production, on-site development, Yeah,
it definitely can, but it's in theory it can, but it's like with lightweight plasterboard construction. I've done some large projects where we use plasterboard construction as well as for the internal wallings, and in theory, yes, it can, but it comes down to the actual contractors. So often they're just mistakes or learning curves because the technology is not readily used, and there's a bit of a learning curve on site. So it ends up not being quicker. But I think as the technology gets adopted quicker and people become more familiar with it, there are more contractors and more competition, you'll start seeing that. The timeframes will come down, it'll get quicker. So at the moment, I'd have to say probably not. But in theory, yes.
Yeah, great. Mike?
Yeah, thanks, Marlies. David, thanks for the presentation. Fascinating building. Just in terms of the actual construction experience, what were sort of the key lessons learned in terms of dealing with labor and the skills available to actually work with the materials that were being applied?
Yeah, well, I think so. As I mentioned in the presentation, the client decided to manage the build process themselves. So there wasn't a main contractor coordinating all of the subcontractor works. There was, obviously, they had employed labor and they had a builder. But, so in all my experience, my first suggestion is always you have to have a main contractor coordinating all the subcontract works, because in those gray areas that all the problems are, they have to be managed. So, yeah, I think the client could probably talk to a lot more of the detailed kind of challenges on site that they experienced. But, yeah, I think, anyone, architect that you would ask would say, you have to have a main contractor on site coordinating all of the work, and managing all the overlap between the contractors. So, like, for example, with the cross-laminated timber and the electrical I mentioned, you know, all of the cutouts for the conduits have to be cut out on site in the factory, and then the electrician's got to fit into those cutouts. Likewise with the plumbing, and the interface between the CLT and the aluminium. We detailed all of those thresholds and jams and everything, but there were some changes on site and some things that didn't quite work. So yeah, that's as much as I can kind of tell you now. I hope that gives you
Okay, no, that's great. And then just from an approvals process, were there any additional requirements from a lightning or fire protection perspective imposed by the local authority?
Not from a lightning, but from a fire perspective. So, I mean, for normal buildings, there are standard fire codes deemed to satisfy.
Yep,
And
yep.
I mean, we often go out of that, and then you have a rational design done by a fire engineer. But here there were no deemed to satisfy codes, and you know there was no basis to do. Yeah, so you can either then go rational design, or you can use a product that's Agrimar certified, but CLT wasn't Agrimar certified. So they had been doing a whole lot of tests with the Stellenbosch Stellenbosch University, showing fire compliance with the fire codes. And yeah, so there was a lot of additional work that had to be done to show the municipality that it was compliant from a fire perspective.
Okay. And you know if there's any pushback from insurers?
No. So they used, I don't think they really looked into it in too much detail. They classified it as a timber building. Obviously, they insure timber buildings, and the premium got a little bit higher, and there are a little bit more contingencies you need to kind of have in place for timber buildings. But yeah, they just classified it as a timber building.
Okay, no, great. Thanks a lot. And then one last question for Kim. Just in terms of adhesion, are there any specific adhesives that are most compatible with Accoya, urethanes or vinyl acetates?
Yes, there's definitely what we use in the factory mostly, which has been specified by the Access Technologies, is obviously the polyurethane wood glue, which is quite messy. So we also use melamine urea formaldehyde, which is the same as the one that is used for making doors, all the internal doors, etc. But by having the addition of the melamine, it makes it completely 100% waterproof, and it's easy to clean off, and yeah, it works like an absolute bomb.
Okay, and then does that give you much in the way of formaldehyde emissions?
No, not at all. Once it's set, you don't have a problem. So one is still looking at trying to get some type of, to get away from the urea formaldehyde completely. We've got a German company working with us at the moment to try and see whether or not they can make a D4 PVA glue, which we're busy testing it at the moment. I've done some waterproof tests at home. I've boiled it for a couple of hours, and it seems to be working quite well. But the problem is it's very expensive to import it. So we're looking to the guys at Permaseal locally to start manufacturing it for us.
Okay, no, great. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Nice. Kim, from a manufacturing perspective, is there any future developments around manufacturing Accoya in South Africa?
Now, unfortunately, the cost to manufacture it it's setting up the reactors and that type of thing are just completely over the top. They were talking about the first reactor that they put in Holland cost 65 million euros. And yeah, so, and we also have a big problem that you can acetylize any timber at all. But the problem is you've got to look at the renewable side of things. So obviously a fast-growing pine is the right way to go. But the problem is in South Africa, we don't have huge forests of radiata pine. You've got all the other pinestas and all those other type of pines, which have got, lots of knots and that type of thing. So the radiata pine that's imported from New Zealand, everything that comes into the country here after acetylation is all clear. There's no knots at all. So yeah, it's just a no-brainer. You can't have a plant in South Africa, unfortunately.
No, that's understandable if it's if it's costing that much. Okay, then I'm gonna wrap up the webinar. So just to wrap up, we're gonna have another event obviously next month, last Thursday of the month, and for next month we have we're gonna talk about Joburg for a change and see what the city is up to, and we also have a speaker from My Josie, who are doing amazing work in the inner city. So the topic is around inner city regeneration, which is definitely going to be a really great webinar. Okay, and with that, I'm gonna want a big round of applause from everyone for Chloe and David and Kim for being here with us. Great presentations. I really enjoyed both the presentations. Super insightful. I love the beautiful, beautiful building. And Chloe, thank you for explaining what Accoya is. It was a very insightful, and we definitely all learned. I still cannot pronounce Accoya timber, and every time I'm struggling. But I'll get it right one day. But thank you guys so much for being here and spending time with us and sharing your knowledge on the project and the timber. And thank you again, Resolute Timber, for sponsoring the webinar. Really appreciate your contribution to the RCSA. All right, and then lastly, we are doing a round of Design for Greater Efficiency courses, your 101 Green Building course. If you're in Gauteng from the 9th to the 11th of September, and in Cape Town, 14th to the 16th of October. It's 3 days, and the cost is only 4,500 rand. And I know nobody wants to pay for education these days, but and so we're looking at trying to make it for free. We are currently doing a course in Kenya, and we opened it up for free, and we had like 80 participants. So we want also that to happen in South Africa. So we're looking for people that can sponsor it so we can offer it for free. So more update on that next month. And then, yeah, just keep following us on our socials. We really appreciate your likes, your thumbs up, and your subscribing. So please keep that going. And then lastly, with that, I want to say thank you guys for attending. Thank you for being here. Have a great evening, and hope to see you next month. Thanks, everyone.